Alright guys, so I'm currently standing under the Golden Gate Bridge right now because we're going to be filming a video today that I think is honestly something that I probably should have covered a long time ago. The other day I was watching a video from Hashim from Pushing Film, our good friend over there in Australia, and he made a video talking about older kind of digital cameras that give you a film look. Now, after watching that video, I realized that I've never really done a video talking about how I turn my digital photos to look more like film. Now, a quick disclaimer. Now, if you're looking to get the film look, just the pure look of film, the best way to do that is to genuinely just go out and shoot it. But I understand that nowadays, not everyone has access to film cameras or maybe even developing chemicals. And so today, I want to show you guys all of the smaller details that go into what I do to make my digital photographs look like film. And this is going to work with any camera. I'm going to cover stuff from your phone. Everyone has a phone, all the way up to some of these more serious cameras like the Xpro 2 and whatnot. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the editing, some of the in-camera settings, as well as some of the smaller details again that I associate personally with the film look. So with that said, I have the GoPro strapped onto my Xpro 2. I'm gonna be kind of running and gunning as we go because I only have about an hour left of sunlight. Here is how you can make your digital photographs look more like film. Sometimes you gotta keep your head on a swivel, you know? This light right here is just peeking through under this little part in the Golden Gate Bridge. It's ridiculously beautiful. I got the sand right here. That's insane. we got a pretty good set of images to work with for tonight. Right now the sun is setting. I'm gonna try to go back to where the surfers are, catch them in action. Whew. All right, you guys, it's absolutely freezing out there. I can't feel my hands. I can barely move them. We're done shooting for the day. We have all of our photographs that we're gonna take home and edit. Check this out, there's an Apache above our head. Why is he flying over? Alright you guys, so we're finally back home, and now I'm going to take you guys through the process on how I kind of edit my images to look more film-like. Now, while I was out there, I didn't really get to explain thoroughly exactly what I wanted to say about, film simulations and having a good start and recipe with that. And so I'm going to do a quick little recap of that before we move into actually editing the images to look more film-like. Now, there's a ton of variables that go into making your images look more like film. First and foremost is the lens that is on the camera. Most modern lenses, because of how sharp they are always going to have some type of clinical and digital look. And so if you want to really achieve something closer to that film look, a good idea might be to adapt some of your old vintage glass onto some of your newer camera bodies, just so that you can get, the same rendering of the lens on your sensor for your digital files at least. Now, I mentioned briefly you want to be able to match the hatch, and all that really means, you guys, is find a film stock that you want to emulate and focus on the characteristics that kind of stand out from that film stock, and try to somehow pull those out of your digital files. Chill. You're a true menace, you know that? You want coffee? You want some coffee? Alright, so let's get to editing. So the first step, you guys, you need to take care of is importing all of your files. Once you import the files, go ahead and open up any editing software that you use for your photographs. So if you don't have any editing softwares, the one that I'm going to be using today that is free on the App Store is VSCO. And VSCO, in my opinion, is a great app. It's the app that I use for all of my social media posts. And if I just want to be able to throw a quick edit on a photograph, VSCO is typically what I use. Now, I will use Lightroom when I do more serious work, when I need to take my time and really kind of be very, very diligent with every little adjustment that needs to be made. But for anything quick, like for example, today's video, I will be using VSCO. Okay, so in my VSCO app, I already have the photos imported and ready to go. All right, so once you have the image you want to start editing, the first step that I'll usually ask myself is, do I need to apply a preset? Now, presets honestly have come a really long way, and they make presets now for pretty much all the film stocks that are available to shoot, even film stocks that aren't available or being made anymore. Now, VSCO has a ton of film stocks that you can choose from, but this is not necessary. You can just go with how your sensor read the image and read the scene. And if that's what you want to do, and maybe you already have film simulations built into your camera, this step is not always necessary. But personally, I do like to use a preset, and my go-to is KC25, which is Kodak Kodachrome 25, and this preset honestly looks really, really good with the right adjustments. Okay, so once you've applied the preset that you want onto your image here, you're gonna notice that there's still going to be a little bit of work that you need to do to get your image to look a little bit more film-like. Now, at the moment, this image looks extremely clinical and sharp and not really film at all. So the first thing that I'll generally do is I'll adjust my exposure properly. Now, exposure in regards to film photography is honestly very, very important, because a lot of the time the film look is often going to have this sort of more overexposed look. Not in every photo, but for Portrait 400 at least, you often see images overexposed and kind of have this fairy and free-like look to it. So the first thing I'll do is I will overexpose it just a little bit here. Just enough to where the highlights on the top aren't completely blown out, but anything in these shadow areas here are going to come out just a little bit more. Now, after exposure, the next thing I'll adjust that's very important to the film look is the contrast. Most lenses, modern lenses I should say, are very contrasty as it is. And depending on the scene, you might need to adjust your contrast as well. Generally for film images, I will knock the contrast back just a little bit. Now, as you can see, if you go ahead and put the contrast back all the way, it's gonna be a little bit soft. It kind of softens up the image here. So use it however you want it to. And you know, it's gonna be an image to image basis type of thing. You can't just give yourself a number and go by that every single time. But for this particular image, I will do a maybe -1. Okay, so we've adjusted exposure. We've cut back on the contrast just a little bit to make the image a little bit more soft. The next thing that I'll generally do is I'll mess with the saturation a little bit. Now, before we mess with the saturation, one thing that every photograph, especially if you're using a preset or a film simulation recipe on your camera, that you need to adjust first is the white balance. Some images and presets are going to lean more towards the green tint of everything. Some images are going to lean towards the more magenta tint. And so to compensate, you need to basically just go the other way. So in this image, as you can see here in this kind of like shadow area here on the bottom, it's extremely green. So what I'll do to combat that is I will add more magenta to the image until I see that most of that green has gone away. Green, and it looks just about normal right here. So just enough tint to be able to have a neutral look to it without, you know, any tint in the photograph. I'm looking at my image now and I feel like it's still lacking something. Now with Portra 400, one really noticeable characteristic is the warmth of each of the images. So what I'll do is I'll go back to white balance and I'm just gonna add a little bit of warmth, just enough to where I feel happy about it. And about like right here, +1, I feel very happy with where this image is at the moment. So now we can adjust saturation just a little bit. And the thing you don't want to do is oversaturate your image, because oversaturating is just going to make things look more digital. You want to just do it enough to where the colors pop. And of course, this is all subjective. So, you know, maybe you don't want super vibrant colors in your images. But personally with Portra, I do like that pastel look. And so now that we have the colors down, the last thing that I'll do to this image before moving on to the next step is to add some grain. Now this is, again, completely optional. You don't need to add grain if you don't want to, but if you do want to have some sort of film look to it, you can add some, you know, artificial grain. Now, some people hate it. I personally don't mind it. So I'm just going to find a spot in the image here, for example, the signage on the top here, and then I will just add a little bit of grain. Boom, that's perfect for me. And here is the completed image. I'm gonna pop it up on the screen here and let you guys see the before versus the after. And you guys let me know really quick in the comment section what you think about the results after editing. You guys, so the last and final step here has to do with adding a border to your photograph. So now for those of you guys who have scanned film before, you know that those borders are going to show up in your scans, whether you're doing it with a flatbed scanner, a pack-on, or even something like a DSLR scanning. And so what you end up having to do is cropping the negative just to have the image in display. One thing that a lot of the times back when I would scan my film all the time was I would make sure to leave a little black border on the edge of the image, partly because I like the aesthetic of it. So one way that I found out you can add those in to your digital photographs is to use an app called Snapseed. Now Snapseed, again, is just a free app on the App Store here. And once you have the app, go ahead and open up the photograph that you want to add in. In this case, we're going to pull up that same photograph that we made earlier. And once you have that image loaded up, you're going to be able to see the tools here on the bottom. So you want to click that. And right here at the very bottom, you're going to have frames. When you select frames, it's going to give you a ton of different options for different frames that you can have on the border of your image. The one that I personally think looks most like film is going to be number 14 and number 13. Number 14 I like because on the very edge here, it has more of a kind of rounder edging to it. It's not completely straight. The other one here is going to just be a completely kind of 90-degree right angle straight cut line. So, you know, whatever your preference is, go ahead and use that. But generally, I will use this And anywhere on the screen you can adjust left or right. And you can have a really thick border like this, which looks terrible because no real film image looks like that. Most of the time when you scan film, it's very, very thin because, you know, most of the time you need to cut that out of your frame. So I'll go ahead and just adjust it up until there's just a very thin border on it. And that little black line is just a very small minor detail that you can add to your images to make it look more like film. All right, so there you have it, you guys. That is my process on how I make my digital images look more like film. The real secret to this, again, folks, is just to pay attention to those smaller details like softer colors, softer highlights. You don't want anything to look too harsh. Most of the time, straight out of the camera, they are going to look like that just because they are modern digital cameras. And as long as you kind of take care of that and maybe even add that border, you can have images that look more film-like. Now, in my opinion, if you really just want to get that pure film look, the best thing to do is to pick up a film camera and just start shooting. There are tons of videos on this channel with affordable cameras, where you can get them, and different tips on how to start shooting film. And so if you've never shot film before, check out some of my other videos so that you guys can get started. Thank you guys, man, so much for tuning into another King Japes video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know in the comment section down below if you guys have any other tips that we can use to be able to get our images to look more film-like, or if you guys have any suggestions, comment those down below. But that's gonna wrap it up for this one. I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minolta Gang.